Hello, good day everyone. Welcome to Teaching and Assessment of Literature. I am Rika B. Attention for today's video. So we're gonna discuss the three main topics, which are first, the overview of the nature of literature, literature genres, and last is literature as significant human experience. So for our objectives, of course, at the end of the lesson, the students are expected to first describe the nature and function of literature. Second is identify the different literature genre and its example. Third is learn literature as significant human experience. And last is explain literature as significant factor in shaping the society. So let us first discuss the overview and the nature of literature. Okay, so according here, so etymologically, the term derives from the Latin word literatura, or learning. So a writing grammar, originally writing formed with letters from litera or letter. So according here, a literature can be defined as an expression of human feelings, thoughts, and ideas whose medium is language, oral, and written. So it is also not only about human ideas, thoughts, and feelings, but also about human experiences of the authors. So it can be medium for a human to communicate what they feel, what they think, and experience to readers. So of course, literature grows out of life, so it reacts upon life and fed by life. So generally, we can say that everything in print is literature. So, but this would be a very vague description of literature. So, broadly speaking, literature is used to describe anything from creative writing to more technical or scientific works. But the term is most commonly used to refer works and the creative imagination, including the works of drama, essays, fiction, non-fiction, and so many more. So any works of art um, in which the emotional content predominates is literature. So literature is the expression of written words. Literature is also distinct from all other arts. So it has no medium of its own. So it contains many mixed forms of literature exist in it. So despite the definitions earlier that we have read, so I feel that literature is beyond this definition. So it is more than what we see and perceive. So its boundaries cross our lives, our traditions, our culture, social relations, and national unity, and a lot more. So it serves as a reflection of reality, a product of art, a window to an ideology, and everything that happens within a society can be written, recorded in, and learned from the piece of literature. So whether it be a poetry or a prose, so literature provides insight, knowledge, or wisdom and emotion towards the person who partakes it entirely. So our lives is manifested in the form of literature. So it is an embodiment of words based on human tragedies, desires, and feelings. So it cultivates wonders, inspires a generation, and also feed information. So even though it is dynamic, so endless and multidimensional literature contributes a significant purpose to world we live in. Okay, so moving on to the second slide, so let us see the literature based on the different point of view. So the world today is ever changing. So never before has life been so chaotic and challenging for all. So life before literature was practical and predictable. So but in present day, so literature has expanded into countless libraries and into minds of many as the gateway for comprehension and curiosity of the human mind and the world around them. So literature is of great importance and is studied upon as it provides the ability to connect human relationships and define what is right and what is wrong. So literature is the foundation of life. So now let us see the different points of view, the different point of view in literature. So first is literature is art. So of course, literature is art for it shares a story and develops a theme for the audience. So while it can stand alone as a form of art, so it also closely related to other art forms. So music is similar to poetry in pattern and rhythm. So it can also reflect the same social concerns as literature and often represent in time in history. Second is literature is language. So of course it is language for it serves as our medium to communicate with other people. So without a verbal, so through literature, we can speak and conveys our feelings and emotion. Next is literature is aesthetic. So it is aesthetic. So whatever works we have will always be outstanding and awesome, for it is the results of our imaginative mind. Next is literature is fictional. So it is fictional since humans' capability to think and imagine is limitless. So we are given the opportunity to go beyond more than the things that is existing. So we explore a lot of unexplainable and unimaginary things that makes our works fictional. Next is literature is expressive. So it is expressive. So above all, so the reason why we write is that there are some unsaid things and thoughts in our mind. So but with the help of literature, we are able to express everything we have within us. And as second is literature is effective. So it is effective indeed. So have you ever experienced reading love or a tragic story inside your room, then suddenly you just find yourself crying and smiling of what you have reading? So that is because we are affected. So we are driven by the strong emotions that triggered us to feel what we are reading. And last is literature is everything in print. Yeah, indeed. So one of the examples are the novels, the books that we have read. So literature is everything in print. So moving on to the next slide is the function of literature. So according here, literature as an entertainment function. So of course, the entertainment provided by literature is different from mass entertainment whose model is packaged in performance, business, and advanced technologies such as magic, music, and acrobatics. So literature provides entertainments that contains fun inner games. So literary works can also be staged as entertaining performances such as poetry musicalization, poetry dramatization, short story reading, or the staging of fragments of novels or folktales. So even literary works can be converted into soap opera or film. So however, I do not combine literary works with other arts, so such as the additions of music, lighting, fashion, stage layout, and the stage setting. So to interfere with the delivery of the meaning of literary works that is entertaining and useful for the continuity of life. So it is indeed entertainment. So it is known as pleasure reading, just like what I have mentioned earlier. And this function literature is used to entertain its readers. So it is consumed to seek one's enjoyment. And next is social and political function. So literature as social and political function. So in here, the literature shows the society how it works around them, and it helps the reader to see the social and political construct and the state of the people around them. Next is literature as ideological function. So in here, so of course, literature shapes our way of thinking based on the ideas of other people. So this also displays other person, and it plays consciously and unconsciously in our lives. Next is the moral function. So as a moral function, so it is that literature, a lot of literature impart values to everyone. So since some books and some literature contains morals, so whether good or bad, so those whom read might absorb it and help them shape their personality. Next is we have the linguistic function. So in here, it just shows how the literature preserves the language of every civilization. So from where it originated. So there are also some evidences that some civilization has existed by recording the language and preserving through the expanse of time. Next is we have the cultural function. So of course, the literature orients us to the traditional and culture arts of a certain ethnic group. So the heritage, how those people behave in a certain community. Next is for educational function, of course. So in our school, we are taught by a lot of different literature, and with that, so we are able to learn the different culture and the tradition of other countries. So we are also able to adopt and absorb the different moral lesson in shaping our our personality and our characteristics. So this teaches the human also. This also teaches the human experience. Next is the historical function, of course, since the literature um, records an event over time. So it also records the culture and the historical background of our ancestors that happened over time. So moving on, let's go on to the different literature genres. So first is we have the two types of literature. First is prose. So according here, a prose is a form of written or spoken language that typically exhibits a natural flow of speech and grammatical structure. So a related narrative device is the stream of consciousness, which also flows naturally, but it's not concerned with syntax. So it is derived from the Old French prose, which in turn originates in the Latin expression prosa or ratio, which is literally straightforward or direct speech. So under prose, we have fiction. So fiction, so it is a creative work, so chiefly any narrative work portraying people, events, or places in that are imaginary or not strictly based on history or facts. So in its most narrow usage, so fiction applies to written narratives in prose and open, specifically novels as well as the novels and short stories. So under fiction, so we have fable. So what is fable? So according here, it is a narrative form, usually featuring animals that believe and speak as human beings. So told in order to highlight the human follies and weaknesses. So a moral or a lesson for behavior is woven into the story and open explicitly formulated at the end. So second is myth. So myth is a folklore genre consisting of a narratives that plays a fundamental role in a society, such as foundational tales or origin myths. So the main characters in myths are usually non-humans, such as gods and goddesses, demigods, and other supernatural figures. Next is we have legend. So legend is a genre of folklore that consists of a narrative featuring human actions believed or perceived both by teller and listeners to have taken place in human history. So narratives in this genre may demonstrate human values and possesses certain qualities that give the tale verisimilitude. Next is we have parables. So in a parable, so it is a succinct, so didactic story in a prose or verse. So it illustrates one or more instructive lessons or principles. So it also differs from fable. So in that fable employs animals, plants, inanimate objects, or forces of a nature as characters, whereas parables have human characters. So next is we have folktale. So a folktale is a folklore genre that typically consists of a story passed down from generation to generation orally. Next is we have a short story. So a short story is a piece of prose fiction typically can be read in one sitting and focuses on a self-contained incident or a series of linked incidents. So with the intent of evoking a single effect or mood. Next is we have novel. So a novel is an invented prose narrative of considerable length and a certain complexity that deals imaginatively with a human experience. So usually through a connected sequence of events involving a group of person in a specific setting. Next is we have novelette. So a novelette is an extended prose narrative story or short novel. So it is a novel that is regarded as a being slight, trivial, or sentimental. Next is we have here the anecdote. So an anecdote is a brief, revealing account of an individual, persons, or incident. So a story with a point, such as to communicate an abstract idea about a person, place, or a thing through the concrete details of a short narrative, or to characterize by delineating a specific quirk or trait. Second, under the prose is nonfiction. So, what is nonfiction? So, according here, it is a broad genre of writing that encompasses all books that aren't rooted in a fictional narrative. So non-fiction writing can be based in history and biography. So it can be instructional. It can also offer commentary and humor, and it can ponder philosophical questions. So under the non-fiction, so we have an autobiography. So autobiography is a self-written account of one's life. So the word autobiography was said to be first used deprecatingly by William Taylor in 1797. So in the English periodical or the Monthly Review, when he suggested the world as a hybrid but condemned its apathy. Next, we have biography. So a biography is a detailed third-person account for another person's life story. So it also contains basic information about the subject's life. So like their place of birth, education, and interest. Next is we have a diary. So a diary is a record with discrete entries arranged by the date, reporting on what has happened over the course of a day or the other period. So personal diary may include a person's experiences, thoughts, and or feelings, excluding comments on current event outside the writer's direct experience. Next is we have journal. So a journal is an academic journal or scholarly is a periodical publication in which scholarship relating to a particular academic discipline is published. So academic journal also serves as permanent and transparent forums for the presentation, scrutiny, and discussion of research. So they are usually peer-reviewed or referred. Next is we have history. So history, so of course it is the study of change over time, and it covers all the aspect of a human society. Like for example, the political, the social, the economic, the scientific, technological, medical, cultural, intellectual, religious, and military developments are all part of history. Next is we have drama. So under drama, so we have tragedy and comedy. So I know we're all familiar with this tragedy and comedy. So some reporters were going to elaborate this topic. Second types of literature is, so we are done with prose. So now let's move on to poetry. So what is poetry? So poetry is a literature that evokes a concentrated imaginative awareness of experience or a specific emotional response through language chosen and arranged for its meaning, sound, and rhythm. So poetry is a vast subject, so as old as history and older. So it also present wherever religion is present, so possibly under some definition. So the primal and the primary form of language themselves. So under poetry, so we have narrative. So ang narrative is a story or tale that is a series of related events or experiences. So whether it is non-fictional or fictional, so narrative can also be presented through a sequence of written or spoken words. So still or moving images or any combination of this. So under the narrative, so we have ballad. So a ballad is a form of burst, and it is often a narrative set to music. So a ballad is derived from the medieval French a chanson ballady or ballad, so which were originally dance songs. So ballads were actually particularly characteristic of the popular poetry and song of Britain and Ireland from the late Middle Ages until the 19th century. Next is we have epic. So an epic poem, or simply an epic, is a lengthy narrative poem typically about the extraordinary deeds of extraordinary characters who in dealing with gods or other superhuman forces. So it shapes to the mortal universe for their descendants. Next is we have the metrical tale, romance, lyric. So in here, so the metrical romance is a type of narrative poem that deals with the story of adventure, love, chivalry, and deeds of daring do. So it also called the chivalry poems. So they quite often contain an element of mystery. So next, after narrative, so we have lyric. So lyric, it is a verse or poem that is supposedly is so susceptible of being sung to the accompaniment of a musical instrument. In ancient times, so usually lyre. So under lyric, we have an ode. So an ode is a typical of lyric stanza. It is a elaborately structured poem praising or glorifying an event or individual. So it also describes the nature intellectually as well as emotionally. So a classic ode is structured in three major types. We have the strophe, the antistrophe, and the epod. Next is we have the elegy song. So the elegy is a form of poetry in which the poet or the speaker expresses grief, sadness, or loss. So history of the elegy form. So the elegy began as an ancient Greek metrical form, and it is traditional written in response to the death of a person or group. So next we have sonnet. So traditionally the sonnet is a 14-line poem written in the iambic pentameter, so employing one of the several rhymes schemes and adhering to a tightly structured thematic organization. So the name is taken from the Italian sonetto, which means a little sound or song, and discover more poetic terms. Last is dirge under the lyrics. So a dirge is a somber song or lament expressing mourning or grief, such as would be appropriate for performance of at a funeral. Next, we have dramatic. So under dramatic, so we have a comedy, of course. The main purpose of comedy is to create an entertainment for everyone. So tragedy and melodrama. So tragedy melodrama is a kind of drama having a musical accompaniment to intensify the effect of a certain scenes, while tragedy is drama or similar work, so in which the main character is brought to ruin or otherwise suffers the extreme consequences of some tragic flaw or weakness of character. Next, we have farce. So farce, it is a comedy that seeks to entertain the audience through situations that are highly exaggerated, extravagant, ridiculous, and absurd and improbable. So almost the same with comedy. Next, we have here the social. So the social poem or the social poetry. So the social poetry is a poetry which performs, of course, a social function or contains a level of social commentary. Next is we have monologue. So in theater, so a monologue is a speech presented by the single character, and it's most often to express their thoughts aloud through sometimes also to directly address another character or the audience. So monologues are common across the range of dramatic media as well as in non-dramatic media such as poetry. Next, we have heard drama. So um, under drama, so we have tragedy and comedy. Of course, we are all familiar with tragedy. So tragedy, it is a genre of drama based on the human suffering and mainly the terrible or sorrowful events that befall a main character. So traditionally, the intention of tragedy is to invoke an accompanying catharsis or a pain that awakens pleasure for the audience, and comedy, so intended for the audience to laugh. Okay, so moving on to the literature as significant human experience. So in this slide, so I have here a quotation. So it says, literature is the reflection of human experience. So this quote is actually true. So the human experience or a memory is different through everyone else's eyes. So every person in the world takes something different from what the author wrote. So it could be what the reader liked, or it could be the personal opinion of the reader that the reader takes from what the author wrote. So many people believe that literature comes from the writer's imagination, and the literature, it is just words that form sentences in a piece of paper. So people think that words do not mean anything to anybody, but literature is a reflection of a human experience because it allows the people to look back on their memories. So according here, literature allows the writers or readers to look back on their memories because they can relive the memory or experiences through word. So of course, it allows the writers or the readers to look back on their memories because they can relive the memory or experience through words of the author. So the literature opens the mind to old memories and allows people to relive their experiences, whether it is good or bad. So, but memories that some human experiences are based on people's learned their mistakes from bad memories. Next is literature allows people to share human experiences through imagery in their words. So, of course, the literature allows people to share human experiences through imagery, white and black community. So, in literature, people can share one experience. Last is literature allows people to learn through other people experiences and learn life lessons because they can see through other people thoughts and memories. So, people interrupt experiences differently. So, everyone reacts differently. So, it's human nature. So, people can take away different things from every piece of literature. So now what are the five common themes in literature? So usually when we write, so our themes are love, death, good versus evil, courage and perseverance, and life. So in conclusion, so of course literature allows the readers to do a lot of things. So like those famous authors, Harper Lee. So it allows the people to relive their childhood's memories, or like Martin Luther King Jr. So it allows people to share the same experience or a dream, but also it allows the people, like the author Sandra Cisneros, to learn through other people's mistakes and wins in life. So literature is truly the reflection of life on earth or the human experience. So that's the coverage of my report, which tackles the overview and the nature of the literature genres, and literature as significant human experience. Thank you for listening.